Time now for Inside Utah Politics with Lindsay Ertz.
Well, welcome on in today. Thank you for joining us. If you're finding us on our TV streaming app, News for Utah Plus. If you're watching us on YouTube, I invite you to go find us on your favorite streaming channel, Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, newer Samsung TVs. That is where you can find this show. Not Android devices.
I didn't say a word. I did not say a thing.
You giggled.
But you thought really loudly, Android.
You thought out loud.
You should be self-conscious about being an Android
I'm
user.
the group
But the
chat
Android
person.
is the state.
No, it's not.
It didn't pass.
No,
Oh,
it's
it
not.
didn't pass. It was one of the things that didn't pass.
No, that bill was
Got
a
it.
joke to begin with, just like the entire Android platform.
Anyways, joining me today, Taylor Morgan, Leah Murray. Hi, guys.
Hello.
It is good to be with you. Producer Peter's here, too. Hi, Producer Peter.
Hi, everybody. I'm really glad Lindsay brought me up off the top so I can show you my new hat.
Very nice.
In the ATL?
Oh, yeah. Olympic anniversary coming up this year, so.
Also the T-shirt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This one. This whole
Right?
thing.
Atlanta 96.
Yeah, I'm always called out for a poser when I wear this because I was born in '96, but I probably could have caught some of the games.
Peter
right?
was born in
That would feel old.
That
All
just
right,
killed
guys.
me. Sorry. That's the end of the conversation.
And we're done.
Yeah, I'll take my camera down and just let you guys sit with that one.
Yeah, can you go away now? Go away, please.
Back
Go
in the
away.
1900s is when he was born.
Love you, Peter. All right, let's dive into our topics today. We're coming to you after the legislative session wrapped for 2026. There were a ton of proposals that got passed, a lot of controversial bills that didn't actually pass. That was one of the themes that I noted this session, just in my coverage of the session and then talking with politicos and different state leaders. The governor even said that to me, just feeling like, our elections, overhaul, some of the immigration policies, the Secretary of State plan, those did not pass this year. So kind of want to hit that off the top. But kind of taking the steam out of the legislative session is two bills at the very last day that really got a bit dramatic. Let's start with the first one in the changing of the stamp law. We'll call this Stampgate, for lack of a better word.
Oh,
I love that.
Stampgate. Stampgate 2026.
Yeah.
I would say it's less of a gate and more of a clarification.
Okay.
I don't think there's as much of a
Can you
scandal or
explain it a
controversy.
little bit?
Stamp clarification doesn't have the same ring as Stampgate.
That's fine.
The other
Clickbait, I guess.
The other one's called Timegate, so we'll see. No, it's not really Stampgate. But what happened was, just after 11 p.m. on the last night of the session, lawmakers swapped in a substitute to an initiative bill that was just taking aim at the stamp provision with initiatives. So right now the Prop 4 repeal is going on. Folks are going out gathering signatures. And right now we're in the removal process where Better Boundaries is trying to remove people's signatures from the referendum effort. They don't want it to qualify for the ballot. And so one of the gray areas legally was whether a prepaid stamp mailed to voters constitutes paying someone for their vote or constitutes a gift, if you will. Now, a lot of people are likening to what's the difference between, vote by mail and providing a stamp there. I'll let you guys weigh in on that. So the sub on this bill basically said that you can't count any signatures on removal forms that use prepaid stamps. What do you guys make of the move? And kind of, is this a death knell for Better Boundaries?
I mean, a little bit. I just wanted to say it seems unfair. And then Taylor, you just correct me.
Nope.
Because if I'm someone who is removing the signature, right, and I'm doing the process, which before now you could use a stamp that was prepaid. It feels a little ex post facto, right? Like people have already done this process, and now I've written a law to undo something I did before you made it something I couldn't do. That sounded really like a loop like that. But that I a little bit have a problem just in the logistics of that.
And see, I'm actually good with this. I think this was a really good, important clarification in the code because, as you said, Lindsay, it was a gray area. This was a question mark, and it was a question mark that was going to be explored through litigation. And given everything else happening with Prop 4 right now and the ongoing years of litigation, I appreciate a quick clarification in the code that essentially says, no, you cannot do this, right? And I think by doing that, the legislature also acknowledged that it was perfectly fine before.
Yeah, so sorry, let me just interrupt. Leah, to your question,
Oh, yeah,
the
fix
law
it.
carved out that any prepaid stamp accepted before the date of the bill
Got you.
counted.
All right, then I guess I don't have an issue. All right,
So
yeah.
they came in and said anything going forward. Now,
Thank
the
you.
issue that I think some are bringing up is how do clerks tell which stamp is prepaid? If you use a physical 73-cent stamp, you could, in theory, lick those, put them on the paper, and mail them out to voters, and clerks would not be able to tell which is a prepaid postage and which is not. Now, those little lines, like we do in our mail-in ballots, right? Those are computer generated. You'd be
Right,
able
that's
to tell
something
that.
totally different.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, we're going to use the cancellation, right? When a like a private stamp, a prepaid stamp in that sense, an actual physical stamp, rather than just the language. When an actual physical stamp is used, when it is processed at the post office, as it goes through, right, just the normal postal circulation process, it is stamped with a date of cancellation on that stamp, and that is the date that we will use to determine what stamps would invalidate a form. So again, I think all of this is pretty silly, but what it does effectively do is it answers a question that would have otherwise been answered through time-consuming, costly litigation funded by the taxpayers.
But
So
if
I'm
the-
happy with
If
this.
the Republicans are arguing that the law is clear and they sued Better Boundaries over the fact that a stamp is not allowed here, why did they need to change the law?
Because it wasn't clear.
Because it wasn't clear, and it would have been decided by the courts.
But they're claiming it
through
was
lang-
clear in their lawsuit. They're saying it
They're-
was akin to providing,
But again, the Utah legislature, in making this fix, is also weighing in here and saying very clearly, no, Republican Party, it actually isn't clear. We are going to make it clear as day, black and white in the statute, and that's what they did. I think this is a good fix. This is going to save taxpayer money.
So what does this do for the lawsuit then? Does it go in and say, okay, now under this law change, Better Boundaries is guilty here of doing something
Right.
inappropriate? What does it mean?
And that's so. I guess
No, I
missed-
think
yeah,
this
go
change
ahead.
vindicated them, right? Because the legislature acknowledged that this was not illegal. That's also what this
But
change
now
fixed.
it's illegal.
Now it is
So
illegal.
in the middle of the game, the rules changed.
Well, yes and no. I think that metaphor is apt in some cases. In
Okay.
this case, the legislature is only in session 45 days a year. They cannot make this change outside of a special session or the legislative session. This was a timely, important fix to the code that otherwise would have had to be resolved by the courts. And we all know how that's gone for the Utah legislature in the past.
Right.
Of course, this case was brought by the Republican Party. Again, I think this is a win-win for both groups, regardless of what side you're on, because the law clearly says that before this date, those envelopes or those prepaid stamps that were totally fine. They were legal.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to push back. I apologize. So I take
Don't apologize for
take
pushing back.
the point that you both made that they've carved it out that it's fine. But when I read the story, like that we were referencing, and Weber County Clerk Ricky Hatch saying it's going to be hard for clerks to figure this out, and that's what I mean. It's the middle of an election cycle, so a little bit change the rule for the next election cycle, right? Like it should happen for the primary that's coming up fast. It should not be. Anyway, it just feels like,
Yeah.
yes, you're not really carved it out, but if clerks can't figure it out, they are the people who are in charge. How are people
Are
who are...
you calling for more direct democracy in the next election
No.
cycle, Professor Murray?
Taylor,
I
people,
hope that's not what you're advocating
if people
for right
listen
now.
to me, we wouldn't even be having these conversations.
That is true.
We wouldn't have started here.
That's correct.
But
yeah.
a little bit, it does feel all the way back to your question, Lindsay, that this has to be bad for Better Boundaries, right? Because they had gamed out a strategy, right, that involved using this tool that before maybe was in some gray area, but they were going to roll with it,
yeah.
and now is not available to them in the middle of the action.
And Taylor, are you telling me that no initiative up until this point has ever mailed out prepaid postage?
As an opponent to some initiatives in Utah, I have mailed out prepaid postage with envelopes. I have done that in the past. So again, I knew at the time I was operating in a gray area, and I appreciate the clarity in the code now that specifically prohibits this. I think that's a good fix. Anytime we can get clarity and certainty around our elections and the process. I think it's a good thing, because it keeps elections out of the courts.
Right, but would you feel so appreciative if you were currently engaged in a campaign that had mapped out how I was going to address this initiative, like you just said, and the legislature said on a dime, now the rules change? Of course you wouldn't, right? That's what I mean, but it feels...
No, but I would adapt and I would pivot, and if I'm a professional engaging in that way, I could easily adapt to the circumstances. And frankly, if I were operating in this way at this scale, I would have stopped doing that after the lawsuit, because I would just be risking the success of my strategy, right?
So fascinating. Do either of you take issue with the process in the way this bill came in the 11th hour, subbed in a bill that presumably was public, at least for some time, whether it's a day or a week? It's unclear, but at least 24 hours is when I saw the new sub before it passed after 11 p.m. Governor signs it the next morning. I mean, that takes some coordination. I've covered the legislature long enough to know that when the governor signs a bill immediately, it's because it's coordinated.
Well, because that's the only way to get immediate effectiveness.
Right. And the immediate effective date was changed in the bill.
That's
it
right.
was added.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I think this is how it works. This is the process, and I think it's easy to be critical and act like these things are done in a very sneaky way. I simply don't think that is the case. All of this happens in the public eye. All of these, for example, the substitute, the language was available publicly
at 11 o'clock.
It has to be available publicly for at least 24 hours, right, before it can be voted on.
The timestamp I have seen is 8 p.m. the day before.
Right, Thursday night at 8 p.m.
It was 24
and
hours.
so if the vote does happen for 24 hours later, then we have fulfilled the legal requirement for notice to the public. And again, I know things happen very quickly and they move very quickly during the legislative session, but we know that the facts are that very few bills passed this legislative session because so many were killed by process. And so these bills have to go through the process, and you have to trust me when I say legislators are not great at being sneaky with the process. 99% of the time, process is what kills bills, rather than inside politics overriding the process.
So I think I agree in spirit with what Taylor is saying. How do I say it, right?
You're supposed to push me now.
I'm not going to push you, but
push
a
back.
little bit it feels like on this one. So one I want to say, it's a representative democracy. People do things, humans procrastinate, right? So if you've got a deadline, even if we were not in session for 45 days, deadlines happen. And so Congress, that's why we always have conversations around the budget when we're running up against a shutdown, right? Like, so this happens all the time in politics. But a little bit, I feel like on this one, it feels like people who understand the rules of the game at the last minute change the rules of the game to benefit themselves in a lawsuit that they have ongoing. That feels icky. So talk to me like that's what I think.
Let me correct that. If you
Okay.
think legislators understand the rules of the game when it comes to initiatives or this process, I can definitively say they do not. And this was a correction, an update that was brought to their attention, to the legislature's attention late in the process in order to avoid litigation. Again, this had a 2/3 vote in both the House and the Senate and immediately had the governor's signature. I think across the board, this had broad support. It was publicly available as required by law. Nothing sneaky happened here. They just happened to get this one done before it was too late. We'll talk about another item that didn't quite get there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this is you get 105 people who are doing this on a part-time basis, and everything is coming down to the wire. A lot of bills have already been killed or died due to process, and a few things did make it through, but most didn't.
I did go back and watch the committee hearing on this bill just because I was curious about it. So Senator Todd Weiler did point out and ask the sponsor to run this sub. I think it was in late February. This is when this issue was first bubbling up and the Republicans had first accused Better Boundaries of doing this. And so right off the top of her presentation, this wasn't included in the original bill. And he goes, would you be open to a sub fixing this stamp issue? And she was like, yes, I would definitely be open to that. So presumably they worked on it, or it was worked on over the next week or so before it came to the floor. But then the sub was run by Brady Brammer, who put in a different version and added the effective date. So in my mind, Weiler's version didn't make it through, but Brammer's version did, which had that effective date as well. So it's hard to know I mean, the effective date seems very much like we're making a point. This impacts this now.
Yeah, this
right?
campaign in the middle of the game is being impacted.
Again, I think the idea was to answer this question legislatively now to avoid the issue going before the courts and to get an answer there. Again, that costs taxpayer money. That adds uncertainty to the process. And I think it is a positive for Better Boundaries, to take their side of this. I think they also won here because it was clarified in statute that before this date, what they were doing was okay.
Do you think they
that's
see it as a win?
If I were them, I would see it as a win. I can't speak for them.
I
would never dare to.
You would not.
I don't know if they see it as a win.
Look, it's a net loss for them in that they can't do this anymore.
And everyone's questioning which ballot, which.
Well, there's a clear way to answer that, and it's the cancellation date that is stamped on top of the stamp. That's not a difficult question to answer.
All right, we'll move on from this topic for now. We'll see if the stamp issue becomes stamp gate or
We are so in the weeds. This is so meta. This is so meta.
The other
Super
bill
nerdy.
that kind of overshadowed the legislative session was one that didn't end up passing. This was a bill to allow an easier process for cities in Salt Lake County to break off and form their own county. It passed right after midnight on the last day. In fact,
Or it didn't pass.
Most of the votes were counted, and then President Adams ruled that it passed. There was some shouting in the chamber saying, point of order, it did not pass. Over the weekend, President Adams, through his spokesperson, doubled down, saying, they had enough votes before midnight, like it wouldn't have mattered kind of thing. And then he came back on Monday and said, just kidding, we reviewed the process and the bill did not count. So the bill has failed. That's the end result of this. But what do you guys make of how that went down?
I think the process is just messy. We have a bunch of citizen legislators who only do this on a very limited basis every year. I would argue this legislative session was perhaps the messiest. The word dysfunctional also comes to mind. A lot of politics behind the scenes between leadership in the House and Senate. Fewer bills got through this year than have in recent sessions, I believe.
Pause. What's the final number? 541 or
something
something?
like that.
We got close, but going into the last week, we were fewer than 300.
Yeah.
Right.
So a lot happened in the last week of the session. I think that's just the process. I think it's just messy, and I really do appreciate President Adams reviewing the process. I'm sure legislative research attorneys got involved here. They really double-checked this and ultimately came back and said, no, it actually did not pass, and he's clarified the record.
Is this a normal review process that you've seen? You've been at the legislature for a long time, Taylor. Do you normally see them go back and make sure every bill is checked?
Well, the process is checked, and legislative research attorneys, this is part of their job,
Right.
is to make sure that the process is upheld, the Constitution is upheld throughout the legislative cycle. So none of that is new. I would say that I can't recollect another bill dying because it passed at 12:01 the day after rather than before midnight, before 11:59 p.m. the last day of the session. I can't recall another time that's happened. I'm sure it has, just maybe not in my time up there as a lobbyist. But again, I think it's more of the same here. We had a very hectic, frantic session. We went for almost 3 weeks, a month there during the middle of the session where everything was backed up. Everything was log jammed. We had committees being canceled because bills could not get on agendas, right? So we faced a real log jam mid-session for weeks. And so it was a frantic rush at the end to get things done. And I don't think there's any controversy. I don't think there's anything shady happening here. I think it was just a messy process up until the wire. And consequently, this bill did not get past the finish line.
I will say this over the. Oh, sorry.
Brief interjection. 539.
539. Thank
That
you.
is the number on the site at the moment.
I was just going to say over the weekend, going on a walk with friends, talking about the session. These are not political nerds like we are. And one thing they pointed to was, what is this bill that passed after midnight? And midnight. So a little bit, it could have been controversial. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I feel like that was smart of President Adams to say, oh, no, wait. When I look at this, midnight is midnight.
Yeah.
That's in the Constitution, and people who are not really into politics are going to see it that way, and we need to abide by that.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, in our last 5 minutes here, I want to hit on candidate filings because the filing period is open. And so we are in the middle of people filing under this new congressional map. Peter, I'm going to give you a small head start to pull up our new congressional map so we can take a look at it. But this is
These
the
are our
list.
filings, just so y'all know.
These are filings you're looking at right now. So no major surprises here, although I will say today, Carrie Ann Lisenby jumped in the race for CD2 against Blake Moore. Essentially, we had heard rumors for weeks, and she had floated it on social media. It's kind of what you do in politics, like, don't make me do it. Don't make me do it. And then we get in the race, right?
But I also totally thought she
people are
did.
asking me.
Right? Like, I texted you,
Everyone
like,
wants
she's
me to
in.
run.
Everyone's saying I
Everyone
should run.
says I should run.
It reminds me of that SNL skit. That's
Don't
like,
make me
don't make
sing. Don't make me sing.
Don't make me do it. I
That
was
is
not,
an all-time great.
Yeah, I was not mocking Representative Lisenby there. It's just kind of what you
Kristen
do in
Wiig,
politics,
yeah.
right? Yeah. So what do you guys make of those who have filed so far? Any major surprises to you? Or just as we watch these races shape up, what are your takeaways?
Leah, please start because I
was
have
going to
strong
say,
feelings here.
you might have really strong feelings,
Yeah.
and I will want to get out of the way of your feelings. My whole thing is it just feels like uncharted territory. Like I just have no sense of how viable Nate Bluin actually is. I don't think we actually know the numbers, right? Like there are these kind of like it's plus 22, like, and the answer is kind of, but we don't know until we
vote.
see the district actually operate in action. What does it look like when they're running? What do these primaries look like?
Yeah.
So it just, to me, feels like you're asking what I think, and I'm like, wow, it's just gonna be fun to watch, but no predictions.
Let me save you the time in the new CD1. Democrats are going to hold an open primary, which means Ben McAdams is going to win. Because the only primary worth voting in that district will be the Democratic primary, which is open to any and all voters. So that actually, in my opinion, is a huge disservice to Utah Democrats because suddenly, for the first time in forever, they have a competitive primary that will actually determine who represents them in Congress in one of the most progressive congressional districts in the entire country. And in that scenario, they're choosing to have an open primary, which will allow unaffiliated voters and Republicans to have a say in who wins that primary election, and it will be Ben McAdams.
Those Republicans, can they then go and vote in the Republican primaries and
No.
other parts of their ballot?
No, you have to choose which primary to vote in.
So you think a lot of Republicans?
I think all Republicans who care about their vote mattering, just as we have seen Democrats choose to register as Republicans to vote in Republican primaries over the past decade here in Utah.
So you think the sheep's in wolf's clothing will now go vote in this Democratic
Well, they don't even have to
primary?
change their party affiliation. You can be a Republican and vote in the Democratic primary for Congress in CD1.
But you don't have to then be, I'm asking, are you now exclusive? Like I can't vote in the primary for my state ledge seat?
No, you are
No,
not
that's
limited
not it.
from
Okay,
voting
that's
in
what I was
other.
asking.
No.
Right, so
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's
You just can't
that
go
one.
vote in the Republican primary.
I got you.
But there
Gotcha.
may not be a Republican primary for Congress in
Right,
CD1 because it's not viable for a Republican to run and even win there.
But there are two Republicans who have filed. They both need to qualify for the ballot still.
That decision will likely be made at convention by a very tiny pool of extreme Republican delegates. Again, it's not a viable seat for a Republican. Better boundaries, more like busted boundaries. We have 4 hyper-polarized, 4 non-competitive congressional districts in Utah. Utah now is going to have the most extreme congressional delegation representing us in D.C. than we have ever had, thanks to the liberals and Democrats behind better boundaries. These 3 Republican districts now are going to skew more radical and more extreme to the right, which means somebody like a Phil Lyman will have a great chance of beating Celeste Malloy in the Republican primary.
Even
there
with
is
both signature gathering?
There is a reason Phil Lyman is gathering signatures. And it's because Phil knows what I'm saying here. He is more viable in a primary because that district is so polarized far right. Utah now has the most extreme polarized congressional districts in the entire country, thanks to the Better Boundaries effort.
We have to wrap, but are you concerned about any incumbents?
Oh, I'm concerned about
All of
Celeste
them.
Malloy.
Yeah.
I think Blake Moore will have the resources and the name ID to fend off Carrie Ann Lisenby as a challenger. But again, these districts are so polarized and so extremely to the right that all of our incumbents are going to be fending off the far-right fringes of the Republican Party. And this doesn't do any good for any Utahn. We all have lost because of the litigation surrounding Prop 4.
Can we leave on a happy note, though?
No.
Is there?
No. It's all bad.
All right, Taylor Morgan, Leah Murray, thanks for your insights today. We value your opinions and appreciate the lively, spirited debate, even when we disagree.
That's a reference to me getting a little hot in the car. Thanks for putting
I
up
like
with me.
spicy Taylor. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
It's my favorite version. Producer Peter, appreciate you.
Thanks, everybody.
As always, please watch Inside Utah Politics.
1996.
I know.
Back in the 1990s.
Just a bearded baby back there.
Y'all are making me worried. Do I need to do more skincare? Was this not obvious?
But yeah,
The minute my brain, I was like, oh no, that means he's what,
yeah.
32?
But
Yeah,
also,
no,
he's,
and I was like, that's
this
clocks.
is the 30-year anniversary
You look
cap.
great.
I'm
Classic.
turning 30. Cards forwardable.
You
to
represent
ABC
your age
4.
group well.
he's
Peter.
also
Yeah.
the smartest one out of all of us.
And I
so-
respect you as if you're my senior.
A little bit, my head
Listen,
was like,
I
that was
take
30 years
that.
ago.
I
But
take
not a
the weight
boomer
to that
because I
very
don't respect
seriously.
them. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the note we're ending on then, folks.
As I was saying.
Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Dad. I love you.
Inside Utah Politics, 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. on Sunday. President Stuart Adams will join us this Sunday, as will one of the candidates from CD1, Liban Mohammed, who is trying to challenge in the Democratic primary.
How many Democratic candidates do we have in that primary? Do we know? Is
I
it
thought
8?
I counted
I'm gonna have to
7.
count.
but you
Yeah,
said
I
8.
think
Okay.
8
I
is
thought
our
it was
last
7,
number.
but-
I've lost track.
There's so many.
There's a lot. All right. Thank you for joining us this week. We will see you next time.